This is the story of how a single flawed piece of code, born in the shadows of the world's most isolated nation, used weapons stolen from America's elite spies to cripple the globe in one terrifying afternoon. This is the definitive account of the cyber attack that rewrote the rules of digital warfare, the rise and near fall of WannaCry. Our story begins not in a sleek command center, but in a dim, anonymous hotel room in Dalian, China. For 5 grueling days, a programmer we'll call Park was locked in a deep trance, struggling. His assignment was simple in concept, terrifying in implication. Create a monster, but the monster refused to live. Park wasn't some Hollywood stereotype, banging on his keyboard in frustration. He was a professional methodically scouring the deepest corners of hacker forums and the dark web, searching for the one missing piece, the spark that would ignite his weapon. Failure wasn't an option. He and his team already had an incredible, dangerous foundation, a trove of advanced cyber weapons, recently stolen from the NSA and dumped online. These were the crown jewels of American surveillance, but they were useless unless Park could make them work with his existing code. Time was slipping away. Then, a flash. A revelation found deep in a code stream. Wait, what was that? It turning blue. Someone somewhere had reverse-engineered one of the NSA's top tools. This was the key. Thrilled, Park slammed himself back into the work, weaving this stolen knowledge into his creation. Exhausted but satisfied, he finished the bulk of the work, believing he'd finally earned a rest. He turned off his machine and collapsed in the corner of his small room. When Park awoke the next morning, ready to add the final touches, the horror began. The monster had vanished. Frantically, he searched file by file. Nothing. His machine had been wiped clean. A message arrived from his lead, KBAN, congratulating him on his hard work, but the congratulations were grim. They didn't wait. An order came down. They released the monster, unfinished. Park's panic surged. It was already too late. The creature was loose. One by one, computers in schools, train stations, hospitals, and offices were crippled. On May 12, 2017, WannaCry was unleashed. There would be no going back. To understand the fury behind WannaCry, we need to understand the creators, a group driven by isolation and necessity. The Korean peninsula was torn apart by war, leaving an unending rivalry between North and South. As the world changed in the 90s, Pyongyang isolated itself. Famine and hardship followed, forcing the regime to find a new way to survive crime. It started with counterfeits, but as the world went digital, North Korea saw a chance to take its criminal enterprise to terrifying new heights. Their first testing ground was, predictably, South Korea. Between 2009 and 2013, they terrorized their neighbor, starting with simple attacks to overwhelm websites. But they got better. In March 2013, the North Korean military struck Seoul. Within hours, 32,000 machines were infected, including 2 major banks and 3 of the country's largest TV stations. Offices, ATMs, and TVs across the city went dark. The world learned a valuable lesson. North Korean hackers were no amateurs. They were becoming precise and deadly. The world would learn that lesson soon enough. In 2014, when Sony Pictures prepared to release a comedy mocking North Korea's leader, Pyongyang struck. They breached Sony's network, stealing private emails, unreleased movies, and employee data, dumping it all online and sparking global chaos. A country with barely any internet access had just hacked Hollywood. Cybercrime was a powerful tool for disruption, but now came the search for profit. By 2015, they were targeting the financial sector. After small-scale rehearsals around the globe, they launched their masterpiece, the Bangladesh heist. After lurking in the bank's system for almost a year, the hackers compromised its international transfer system, attempting to steal $1 billion. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York noticed the strange requests and stopped most of it, but the attackers still got away with over $100 million. The message was terrifyingly clear. North Korea's operatives were disciplined, persistent, and dangerously effective. By 2017, geopolitical tensions were at a fever pitch. North Korea was testing nuclear weapons, sanctions were piling up, and Kim Jong-un was growing increasingly frustrated. Perhaps the world needed a show of force, but there was a problem. They had the weapon, but no way to deploy it on a massive scale. That's when an unlikely player entered the stage. A mysterious group called the Shadow Brokers started posting cryptic messages online. They looked like amateurs, but this was a disguise. Their posts contained links, and those links held entire caches of malware stolen directly from the United States National Security Agency. Among these stolen tools was Eternal Blue. It exploited a secret flaw in Windows that the NSA had known about since 2012. Instead of warning Microsoft, the agency built a weapon to exploit it. This decision would have global consequences. Microsoft did patch the vulnerability just before the leak likely tipped off by the NSA, but for millions of users who rarely update, the patch came too late. The exploit was dissected by security researchers, creating a massive buzz. And then a cybersecurity firm became the unexpected catalyst for WannaCry. Just 3 days before the attack, a senior staff member posted the reverse-engineered code of Eternal Blue onto GitHub. This was the moment. North Korean hackers stumbled upon the post. Suddenly, they had exactly what they needed. They could combine Eternal Blue with another NSA exploit, Double Pulsar, to create the ultimate cyber weapon, a self-spreading ransomware worm that would move faster than anything before it. The unfinished monster was ready. On May 12, 2017, the malware was unleashed. In less than a day, it paralyzed more than 3/4 of the globe. WannaCry is one of the deadliest ransomware outbreaks in history. Yet ironically, the malware itself wasn't very advanced. Its true power came from two things: how it infected and how it spread. And those characteristics were supplied courtesy of the United States, North Korea's greatest enemy. The deadly combination was the NSA's exploits. Eternal Blue broke into unpatched Windows machines. Then Double Pulsar, a discreet backdoor, established a tunnel to maintain access. Through this tunnel, WannaCry deployed its simple encryption algorithms, turning everything they touched into gibberish. To ensure maximum damage, the malware deleted all backups, making recovery nearly impossible. Then came the infamous red screen. Oops, your files have been encrypted. You only have 3 days to pay ... If you don't pay in 7 days, your files will be lost forever. Send $300 worth of Bitcoin to this address. Panic was inevitable. The first red screens appeared around 7:44 a.m. in Southeast Asia. Within an hour, it hit Latin America. By 10 a.m., it was causing mayhem across Europe. WannaCry was self-propagating. It required no human interaction. It just moved on its own, scanning for vulnerable systems and breaking in, all thanks to Eternal Blue. Nowhere was the chaos more evident than in the UK's National Health Service. At first, a couple of hospitals were hit, then dozens. At its peak, 1/3 of the entire NHS infrastructure collapsed. Dr. Tony Bleetman, an emergency consultant in London, watched the crisis unfold. He arrived for his shift to find people sitting around computers, screens flashing the WannaCry warning. The entire IT system was compromised. Medical staff had to revert to pre-digital protocols. Instead of digital patient maps, they used a whiteboard and marker pens. Registration and note-taking moved back to paper. Surgeries were postponed. Trauma centers struggled. The country was glued to their screens, watching the chaos unfold. Among those watching was Marcus Hutchins, a UK security researcher on a few days off. When he opened his computer, the scale of the crisis hit him. This wasn't a normal attack. It was too big. As Marcus investigated the malware, he noticed something strange. The worm was trying to connect to a random, unregistered web domain before it deployed. He had a sudden, desperate idea. Thinking it was a command server, he registered the domain. He hoped to exploit a vulnerability, but before he could even figure out its purpose, the impossible happened. They had stopped WannaCry. That unregistered domain was a kill switch. With the domain now live, WannaCry halted its self-propagation. By 3 p.m., the destruction was over. Marcus Hutchins had become an accidental hero. The immediate aftermath only deepened the mystery. The kill switch supported this. Some researchers believe it was meant to detect if the worm was being analyzed in a virtual sandbox. The creators were just sloppy. The domain was static, the same for every infection. When Marcus registered it, the worm thought the entire internet was a sandbox and shut down. This catastrophic error points to one logical conclusion. The malware was unfinished. The chain of events was insane. Russian intelligence, widely believed to be the shadow brokers, hacked the NSA and leaked their cyber weapons. North Korea then picked them up to make ransomware. Ultimately, WannaCry's power came straight from American intelligence. The FBI and British investigators began the painful task of tracing the attackers. They found WannaCry's code matched that of the Sony hack and the Bangladesh heist. The development environment was the same. Most damningly, several IP and email addresses were reused across all 3 incidents. All evidence pointed in one direction: the Lazarus Group. Lazarus Group is widely believed to be the heart of North Korea's cyber war machine. These aren't lone wolves. They are high-ranking operatives working within a military structure, reporting to a commanding officer. The final breakthrough came from tracing a network of emails connected to a fake alias. This led them to a North Korean front company, and from there to a Gmail address. A warrant to Google for that account's data led to the final, chilling revelation. Investigators found a CV sent by one of the hackers. It contained his photo, his name, his skills, and his education. His name was Park Jin-hyuk. They now had a real person. North Korea's cyber army was behind the attacks, and Park Jin-hyuk was the executioner's hand. By the end of 2017, the U.S. publicly blamed Pyongyang, but the White House conveniently ignored one detail. WannaCry was the result of a perfect storm: North Korea's ambition, the shadow broker's leak, and the NSA's obsession with hoarding exploits. Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, slammed the U.S. government, comparing the situation to having their Tomahawk missiles stolen and used against civilians. The U.S. government deflected, insisting they were not responsible. But the truth remains. WannaCry, the beast that paralyzed a third of the UK's hospitals and swept across 150 nations, was powered by America's own cyber weapons. The creature, born unfinished in a dim hotel room, proved that in the digital age, a single stolen vulnerability is far more explosive than any missile. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shape our world. We'll see you next time